Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I recently decided to do a series on advanced price action concepts that were really centered around smart money concepts, such as market structure, order blocks, fair value gaps, and other concepts. While I was creating the series, I stumbled upon some of the best indicators I've ever seen that find these smart money concepts for us automatically. This indicator is called Sonar Labs. I'm going to continue this series and demonstrate these concepts using this indicator suite from now on. Before we get started, I'll leave several discount codes for trading services I use in the description, including Sonar Labs, TradingView, and Elite Trader Funding. Lastly, if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like and subscribe to help me grow this channel. With all that being said, let's get right into it. So, this tool suite from Sonar Labs is pretty amazing, and you can see on my screen this is what it looks like, which can look very confusing to a beginner who's not familiar with smart money concepts, but this stuff is actually incredibly powerful, and I've been using it for some time now, but I didn't realize just how much I was missing until I found Sonar Labs, which I'm very excited about. And I'll get into what each one of these are, but the first thing I want to talk about is what the indicators look like. So when you sign up for Sonar Labs, you'll get access to a whole bunch of indicators they have. They have their own volume profile, their own multi-time frame add-ons, smart money concepts. They even have their own oscillator, which is actually pretty impressive. I've never seen an oscillator that I really like, but this one is pretty good. I don't have it on my chart because I don't necessarily include it as part of my strategy, but all of these are worth checking out, especially if you choose to sign up for it. Now, what I do use actually is on my indicator suite. So I use volume, I use their Sonar Lab indicator that shows things like support and resistances, and I'll turn off the other indicator now. So it shows support resistances, swing highs, swing lows, or pivot highs, pivot lows, trend lines, and we'll automatically draw them, and we can see these gray lines here. We can see this is a level that it found from the 4-hour. This is a level found from the daily. I do have lower time frame levels on there, which you can turn off. I'm actually looking at the 3-minute right now. And I should mention, I'm looking at micro NQ on this chart. On the 3-minute, I trade futures, and I do that using a prop account, which I've done other videos on. And I'll leave a link in that. So this works for anything though, futures, stocks, of course options if you're trading stocks, Forex, whatever you might trade. And so I use sort of bare bones on this first indicator. I mainly use it because it just does a really good job of finding levels for me and marking them on the chart without me having to do a single thing. And the levels are stunningly accurate. We can see here this was a level from the daily, which is always notoriously a very strong level. It found for me, price had been moving up, moving up, moving up, hits that daily level and rejects. Now we can see these smaller levels, it chopped around a little bit between them before falling through one. And then we can see as we get down to this 4-hour level, we see earlier we had trouble getting through. We had a couple of fake outs, which is sort of a smart money concept there, where we fake a breakout, hunt stop losses, things like that, come back down. And then eventually we did end up getting through it after forming this uptrend, in which it drew this trend line for me automatically. Now, the settings I use for this particular indicator, again, I mainly use it for levels. This indicator does actually support buy and sell signals, where you should put your stop loss, your take profit. I prefer not to use that stuff. I prefer to use the pivot points, the trend lines, and the support and resistance stuff. You can also turn on alerts and things like that, which is really nice. It does support EMA clouds. So if you wanted to, if you're a fan of trading with moving average clouds, you can add those on there as well. You could see when price is in the cloud, and it actually makes it so you can see the candles, which is really, really nice. And then we could see as price is rejecting off these clouds what it looks like here. So it's definitely a nice feature for people that prefer to use EMA clouds. I just have mine set to the 9 and 21, but anyway, I typically leave this off unless we're in a really strong trending market. We could see which time frames we want to show levels from. ATF is just basically the active time frame that we're on, and then we have daily, 4-hour, 1-hour, 30-minute, and it truly does only show the best ones. I'm actually really impressed by their level finding, especially since it's based off of price action concepts. And then that's really it. Basically everything else I leave disabled. One cool thing that they do are these reversion bands. So if you turn on the reversion bands, we can see basically as these reversion bands act as points where price, that as far as price can go, think of it as a Bollinger Band that actually works essentially it's a pretty cool feature, but I do tend to turn those off just because I don't really use that in my style of trading. But again, if you look at this indicator suite, they offer a 7-day free trial, which I'd highly recommend checking out, and I would recommend playing with all of them. So for Sonar Lab, this is the first one I use. Now, I'm going to turn this off because this next one, the Sonar Lab Smart Money Concepts indicator, is what I find to be the most powerful. And you could literally just use this and nothing else and make a fortune if you apply these concepts correctly. And the reason being is because this will actually not only identify order blocks for us. So I have I have bullish order blocks in green right here. You can see it automatically draws Fibonacci's for us from the previous, in this case, since we are in a bullish uptrend, it drew the Fibonacci pivot points from the pivot high all the way down to the pivot low. And so we can see 236, 382, all the standard Fibonacci levels, which is nice. You can see we're actually holding this 236 level almost perfectly here. And then the other thing it shows is, besides bullish and bearish order blocks, which I'll have to see if I can pull up another example. I actually have it cleaned up so it doesn't show the older data unless it's applicable, but let me zoom in a little bit here. These boxes where it's half purple, half gray, this is automatically highlighting the fair value gaps for us. And if you're not familiar with what order blocks or fair value gaps are, be sure to check out my previous two advanced price action videos. Basically, it's called Advanced Price Action Concepts Beyond Supply and Demand. And the way fair value gaps work is, as candles are created, whenever we have these large bodies where there's no wick or anything on follow-up candles that intercept those large bodies, that means we're missing the whole market auction process. And what happens is when price goes into these fair value gaps, when we get to about the 50% mark, we can basically expect price to fill the rest of the way. And so when we have really big fair value gaps and we clear 50%, typically the rest of it will fill, which is a great time to take a scalp entry if you're on futures and Forex. And on these higher time frames, it can really make a big difference. And that's what I really love about these indicators, because it's really saved my chart prep time. It saves me a significant amount of time. I can look at more tickers without having to add anything myself, and it does everything correctly. The other thing that's worth noting is it shows when we have breaks of structure or change of character. And this is a concept that I didn't really fully grasp 100% until I used this indicator, which is great. So these break of structures, we could see as we're in an uptrend, every time we make a new pivot high, we break that previous structure. And it's an IBOS, meaning it's internal break of structure, because it does account for both your swing time frames, which are your higher time frames, and then your lower time frames, which are your internal time frames. So we have all these internal, your lower time frames. We have all these internal breaks of structures every time we pivot higher. Now, all of a sudden, when we make a lower low, then we get a change of character. And it points out these change of characters because oftentimes the change of characters we'll see an order block get created from those. So we can see in this change of character, we have this red order block that was created with a fair value gap right underneath it. And the way we would play this is, so if we hold this fibs level that it automatically drew for us, and we start coming through this fair value gap right here, we get to the 50% mark. We have a level right here as we clear this and move into this, which we could take this position up if we were to clear this 50% mark on this fair value gap. Once we get into this red order block where this change of character happened, we of course want to wait for a little candle confirmation, and then this would be a great short entry. And that's essentially how we can play these, is we want to look for long entries out of green order blocks or short entries out of bearish red order blocks. Now this is just my color scheme, and just to review this quickly, and again, I highly recommend you play with some of these settings. You can turn on this simple structure indicator, which will help show the trend structure, things like that. You can change the candle colors if you want with trend colors. I leave that stuff off, and I do have it show the break of structures. I do have it show internal structure. The order block logic I'm using is the traditional logic, which basically it shows an order block every time there is a significant break of structure, a change of character. It will create an order block, but you can have that filter to be even more specific, and just, even though you'll see less order blocks, the order blocks you do see are more relevant. You can choose how many you want it to display at any time, which actually I'd like to just bump this up to 8. And then you can choose your color scheme. And it's the same deal see, I just bumped up the order block scheme, and now all of a sudden we have more order blocks on the chart, which in reality, I guess we would only need 4, because once an order block gets defeated, if we were to defeat this order block behind me on my screen, then this order block would become relevant if we were to get through this fair value gap and move into this order block. To keep the chart clean, you can reduce that number. You can also say, show me higher time frame fair value gaps, which is really nice. And we can choose if we want it to automatically draw Fibonacci's for us, show highs and lows. And then the really nice thing is if we want it to alert. So you can say, I only want to alert if we approach a order block. And you can get those alerts popping up on your phone, and then take entries off of those order blocks once the stops are in there. And the way we should be using these ideally is we want to make sure we're looking at higher time frames, right? So we can do I like to do the 4-hour time frame, or the 30-minute time frame. And once we get into notable areas, so we can see on this 30-minute time frame, we've rejected out of this bearish order block here, which was also in line with the daily level. And the idea is the more of these price action concepts you have combined together, the better. So if we have higher time frame bearish order blocks with a level from the daily, and maybe a fair value gap as we approach, which I believe it did have in this case, but once you clear a fair value gap, it removes it from the chart because it's no longer a fair value gap. But if we have a bunch of those on the higher time frame, like we saw at open this morning, today is Monday, September 19th, and we actually opened within a bullish order block. And everyone was thinking that the day would be bearish because we had a sell-off in the after hours. But as soon as we opened in this order block, and I was actually able to take long entries right at open, because on the lower time frame, so we're looking at the 30-minute here, when we drop down to the 3-minute or 5-minute or whatever time frame you want to use, that's where we take our precise optimal entries, and we can see we had this change of character from this bullish engulfing candle, and then right off this change of character, I was able to take a limit order and ride it all the way up to this level, which is being hidden by this other change of character line, but there is actually a level there, and then was able to exit there. We came back down, and then from there we held the change of character area again. We kept moving up. We even had trend formations forming. It started forming new order blocks for us to take, new fair value gaps, and essentially it made it so I could capitalize on so much movement today. And actually at the time, it's no longer showing, but at the time there was a bearish order block here as well, that made it easy to play the rejections, or if you don't want to play directions, you only want to play one direction that's in line with the trend direction, then it's still a great time to exit your position and look for a re-entry. So it draws all these for us, and it's absolutely incredible just how successful you can be by looking at the 30-minute charts, the 4-hour charts, getting an idea of where notable areas are going to be, that it's automatically drawing for us across multiple tickers if you're only tired of watching one, and then purely just taking entries off of the higher time frame order blocks using the lower time frame chart data that we have. And if you want to create alerts from this, you can actually, if you right click it and say, and actually we should do this we want to do this for the smart money concepts. So if we right click one of the order blocks or fair value gaps, we can add an alert, and we can say on any function call. So basically if we come into this smart money concept indicator and it alerts any function to send me a notification on my laptop or on my phone, whatever it might be, and alert me that we're in an area of interest. And when you do that, you can create that, and actually I have to reduce the date here. So if you create that, you'll start getting alerted whenever we're approaching these notable areas. and then you can take action from there. And again, just to show, if we go into the indicator that I just set alerts on and we scroll all the way down, we can say, okay, I only want an alert. I only want those function calls to trigger if we're inside a bullish order block, we're inside a bearish order block, if we make new highs. Again, so there's internal order blocks, and then there's swing order blocks as well, but swing bullish, swing bearish inside, and bearish inside bullish. There's also bullish fair value gaps, bearish fair value gaps, break of structures, change of characters, which I should actually turn on because change of characters seem to react as break and retest zones pretty often. And I highly recommend, you can also say previous highs and lows, things like that for daily, weekly, monthly, which it will plot automatically for you. And I'm going to turn on all of those as well. You can make this as noisy or as picky as you want to make it and never have to mark up a chart again. And then what I really love doing is combining it with my VWAP, my volume profile, periodic volume profile as well. And then we can even, since we're in the after hours here, we can drop down to the 1 minute time frame, let this populate all the data for us, which it does very quickly. And we can see, after rejecting off this daily level that it identified, we created a bunch of bearish order blocks and fair value gaps, which are going to be difficult to move through, which are also going to likely be great short entries as we reapproach those. And we're now heading into bullish order block territory. And there's a fair value gap here as well that we would have to, as we clear that and we get into this order block, assuming we get a confirmation of a candle hold on higher volume, we can take that entry. And then all the other concepts of volume price analysis still complement this stuff very well. So we want to make sure we're using our volume profile to identify where gaps and ledges are and try to line up our entries accordingly. So you can combine all these concepts. And again, when you have anywhere from 3 or more concepts across different time frames all coming together at once, that's when you get your best entries. So anyway, I hope you found this as amazing as I did. That I'm completely in love with this tool in the short time that I've used it, and it has allowed me to hold my trades longer and increase my win rate significantly. And it's just it's probably my favorite price action indicator that I've ever seen by far. Quite honestly, it's the only one that I've ever considered keeping on my chart long term. It's non-lagging. It's purely based off known price action concepts that work very, very well. So again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I appreciate you watching.